Hi, I'm Brock Yates. Today we're in a suburb of Cincinnati, Ohio, where we've got kind of a surprise for you on the great drivers. As you know, we normally spend most of our time talking to men who race cars. But today, we're going to talk to a guy who goes every bit as fast, but on the water. Join me as we meet one of the kings of the fabled thunderboats, the unlimited hydroplanes, Jim Kropfeld. Born and raised near Cincinnati, Ohio, Jim Kropfeld has raced boats for over 20 years. His record in the 225 cubic inch class is legendary. 6-time national champion between 1975 and 1981. In 1982, he drove in only 2 unlimited hydroplane events, yet was honored as Rookie of the Year. His first full season competing in the notorious 200-mile-an-hour Thunderbolts was 1983. Though he was robbed of a national championship by a blown engine late in the season, he still established 15 speed records and won more races than any other driver. In 1984, Jim Kropfeld won the APBA Unlimited Hydroplane National Championship. He's the only driver to ever win 10 of his first 22 unlimited races and has been elected to the American Powerboat Association's Hall of Champions 3 times. He lives in Cincinnati with his wife Lisa and 2 sons. He runs a muffler shop and sells insurance during the off-season.
Well, Jim, I got to say, on the way over here, I was kind of looking for a house with a big unlimited hydroplane sitting in the driveway. I really didn't expect to see these 2 beautiful Pontiacs.
No, I don't even have a boat at all for myself. You know, we're racing all summer, and it's kind of silly with the short season we have here. But these are my toys here. I like to play around with these and wax them all the time and wash them.
Did you restore them? They're beautiful.
Well, I did most of the work, mechanical work, and the body work was done by my brother. He has a body shop, but I did everything else too.
Yeah, I always spend a lot of time with guys who race all kinds of equipment, but the common denominator is everybody usually has a toy car that I do, and I guess everybody, you kind of have to have one to kind of keep your feet on the ground, even with boats, I guess, huh?
I think so. It's just a little something to get away from the normal racing routine and come out and play with these. And you know, these were the old muscle cars anyway. And then when you take a ride and when you appreciate the way they used to be.
Even though I'm sure they're pretty tame compared to sitting in a 4,000, 4,500 horsepower unlimited.
They are. The Unlimited's a different world. You know, before I got there, I thought, oh, it couldn't be that big of a deal to drive one of those. But after I got into the Budweiser and took a few rides, it's really awesome. You can't imagine the speed that you feel. First time I went 150 or 160, I thought, good golly, you know, how'd these guys ever go 190? But now I worked my way up and going 190, and you know, you always want a little more.
It's funny how speed on water seems to exaggerate itself. I remember I've been in a couple, I guess the fastest I've ever been is a couple of offshore boats that run 80 somewhere plus, and it seems like you're going 200. I don't know what it is about the water, but do you feel that way? Does it seem like you're going faster? I'm sure you're used to it now, but when you started to race, did it seem like going on the water was quicker than on the land?
Not in the Miss Budweiser, it didn't. In the smaller boats, it did when I drove the limited classes. But the first time I drove the Budweiser, I was just a little concerned of where I was going. And I went out on the course the first time, and I thought, well, I'll follow Tommy Deeth around. We were just testing. And I just started following him around, and I thought, well, I better look at the gauges a little bit. And I looked down, I had 150 mile an hour, and I thought I was going about 80 or 90. They're so big and heavy, they ride so smooth that until you get up to around 180 anymore, I don't realize speed.
I want to talk to you more about driving an Unlimited after this. We're going to talk with Jim Kropfeld following this message. Jim, before we go any farther, Thunderbolts, unlimited hydroplanes, are something I guess we all know about, at least as a spectator. But tell me exactly what the rules are for the boats. What are they really unlimited?
Well, not exactly unlimited. There are a few rules. The boats, they must weigh 4,700 pounds. They must be driven by underwater propeller device. That is basically the rules. Anything outside of that is unlimited as far as the engine size, the type of engine, the type of fuel, cubic inches, hull design, or whatever. But that's very few limitations.
4,000 horsepower motor in a boat that'll go 100 and I guess it'll go over 200 in ideal situations. I was looking at your boat just a couple of days ago, and the complexity of running one of those things is, to me, maybe more difficult, much more to do in one of those things than a race car, a contemporary race car, which has very few instruments and really a gearbox and a shift lever and a throttle, and that's about a steering wheel. But you guys are, you're half flying those things.
Well, we are. You know, they're designed, actually, if you took the sponsons off, or the pontoons, removed that, the rest of the hull is actually shaped like an airplane wing. And it's designed to have a certain amount of lift, but not too much, naturally. You don't want to go backwards. But with the old airplane engines in there, as you said, it's very complex. And of course, when you saw the instrument panel, you could see we have about as many gauges as an airplane. And we have to watch all those, manifold pressure and oil pressure and airspeed indicators and all the other things. And I guess the biggest problem is for the poor crew members that with those airplane engines that were designed to run around 2,000, 2,200 RPM, we're running ours up around 4,200 RPM. And the components weren't designed to do that. So there's always something that's breaking, and then we repair that and make it stronger. Of course, the next link in the chain comes up, and that breaks. And it's always a constant process of making something stronger.
Is it frustrating for you as a driver to know that you're on the ragged edge of reliability, and that even though you might be very, very quick, I've seen boats, and I'm sure you've been in boats a lot, that have been way out in front and then something breaks, and that must be very frustrating for you, isn't it?
It is, when you know you have something fast that's faster than most of the boats there, and you get out in front, and with everything the way it is, tweaked right to the maximum, it's easier for something to go wrong. I think that's true in any motorsport. And it's a little frustrating, but you have to stop and think of all the work that went into it, and all the dedication of the crew and everything. And they're let down more than I am, I know. I can see it when I come back in, and they feel bad about it. And it's just something that is part of racing. You know, it's no different than the guy that drives a tow truck. If he wrecks it before he gets to the race course, we won't race either. So everybody really has an equal share in the whole overall picture.
Jim, unlimited hydroplane racing is dangerous. A lot more seemingly has been done in terms of safety in recent years in race cars. But you guys really still ride a ragged edge. These boats are very difficult to control. What's going on as far as safety is concerned in hydroplanes right now?
Well, we've started the whole sport as a whole a couple years ago. Jim Lucero started building what he calls a safety cockpit, which is instead of a driver being thrown out in case of an accident, which we thought was the best thing to do and get away from the boat so you wouldn't get hurt. We found out that these boats were actually landing upside down and crushing the driver or hurting him or whatever. So Jim started with a reinforced cockpit, double-walled honeycomb, strapping the driver in using the 5-point standard suspension harness. And we, with the new Miss Budweiser, took it one step further, and we installed a sort of like a fighter plane canopy. It's 3/4-inch Lexan canopy that I can have good visibility and everything, but I'm also strapped in. But then I, too, I breathe oxygen, or it's actually an oxygen rebreather, and I have a trap door in the bottom of my boat. If it lands upside down, I can open the trap door, or if I'm unconscious, naturally the safety crews can come from the bottom and get me out. And I carry a spare oxygen bottle that if I take my oxygen mask off and I have to be underwater, I clamp this in my mouth and I can swim away.
So that's got to be a major breakthrough.
It really, yes, it is. It's one of the biggest breakthroughs. I guess it's like the Indy cars when they decide to not make them so strong and let the tub take the crash and protect the driver, and we're trying to do the same thing.
Because Jim, you really came to the boat after Dean Chenoweth was lost in a crash that he was trapped in the boat, wasn't he? Or hurt when he was going out of the boat?
Right. The problem with the cab-over boat, which is the one where the driver sits in front like we have now, that they're a very wide boat. They're designed to turn quick and accelerate, so they have to be wide to give them stability. Well, if you get too much air under it, they like to go over backwards, and with the driver up in front, like here, as the boat goes over, it keeps him forced into the seat just from the inertia, and it comes down on top of him, and as the boat slides, you get neck injuries is what actually happens, and that's why we think the canopy on the top will protect us that way.
Oh, it's one thing to bounce a 1,500-pound race car off a fence, but it's another thing to dump a, what, 3-ton boat, something at 190 miles an hour, or whatever it is?
This boat here, the one we're running right now, the old Miss Budweiser, it's 8,200 pounds. And that's 4 tons is a lot to crash down on the water. It's unreal.
4 tons is a lot to do anything with, and especially to run at the speeds you guys are running at. I want to talk a little bit more about unlimited racing and how you got into it when we come back. We'll be back with more with Jim Kropfeld and the great drivers following this. Jim, I know you, and everybody knows you as a championship unlimited hydroplane driver. But take me back 10 years. What was Jim Kropfeld doing, and not only in his personal life, but as a boat racer, say, before you got into the big time?
Well, 10 years ago, 1975, I was really starting to come on. Before that, I drove a lot of home-built boats and hobby boats, or boats we built ourselves, and did quite well. But in '75, a friend of mine that I drove for years, Mike Weiner, bought a boat called a Country Boy out of Louisiana, and at the time it held the world record in competition, and we took that first boat, and the first year we had it, we won the national championship, and we broke the competition record with it, and we ran that 2 years and broke a couple records. The following year, we bought a new John Stoddicker designed cab-over boat and went out and we broke a lot of records, and we had a lot of fun ever since.
You were still running part-time, though. This was not a full-time...
No, at the time I worked for General Motors. I was a designer there. And
here in Cincinnati?
North of Cincinnati in Hamilton, Ohio. And I worked my 5 days a week or my 6 days a week, and we'd come home and Mike would have the boat ready to go, or my wife would have the motorhome packed, and I'd come home after work and jump in there, and we'd drive all night to go to a race, and we'd race and party around, have a good time. It was a fun type thing, like going to your local dirt track or something like that with automobiles. But Sunday night, we'd drive all night to get home, and I'd sleep, my wife would drive, and I'd get up and go to work in the morning, and it's just kind of a hobby type thing.
Hey, you done that for a long time? Was that a lifestyle that went on really from the time you started to race boats?
Right. I started in 1961 with a friend of mine who bought an old boat from a doctor across the river here in Kentucky, and I've never seen a boat in my life, and I helped him work on it all winter, and we took it to a race. I was never to a race in my life, and I didn't even know what I was supposed to do. And we put it in the water, and I think he got a third with it, and we built a couple boats ourselves and engines, and in '64 he let me drive one of his boats, and pretty fast boat, but I spun it out 2 times. The first time I ever drove was kind of embarrassing, and but from then on it was uphill, and we started out, we didn't have a lot of money. We would sleep in tents, or we'd sleep underneath the boat with a couple blankets or whatever, and camp out and cook out, and we had a lot of fun.
But it was something. Did you always aspire? Did you ever think that it was going to be unlimited hydroplanes, or was that a pinnacle that you were in? Guys aim at Indy or Formula One or whatever, and was that something that was a goal for you, or did you ever think it would? Did you ever?
I don't think it was a goal. I would see the Unlimiteds every year here at Madison, Indiana. It's about the only time I ever saw them, and it was exciting to go watch, and you'd think, boy, it'd be nice to drive something like that. Or you'd look at some of the guys driving, and you say, God, I know I could do better than that. They get a bad start, or they wouldn't push it hard. Or you just see things that you thought you could do better, but there wasn't any good boats around except like the Budweiser and the Atlas Van Lines and the Pay and Pack. And those rides were kind of sewed up, and I just really didn't pursue it.
So it was,
Was it a surprise when you got the call? I mean, or did you try to get the ride when it was available?
I never tried to get a ride in Unlimited in my life. Bernie Little was the first person that ever asked me to drive one, but I had some suspicion when we raced our Grand Prix boat at the same race course in Detroit in 1982 that the Unlimiteds were at, and the crew chief. I kind of knew the crew chief from the Budweiser a little bit because I've been around boat racing, and in the limited classes I was fairly famous. And he came over one day and he says, when you get a chance, come over. He said, I want you to meet Mr. Little. I says, well, yeah, I said, I'll be over. So I thought, what's up? So I ran over real quick. And Mr. Little, he was busy, so I told Dave, I said, I'll come back when the race is over with. So I waited about a half hour after the race was over, and I started to walk out, and there was a bunch of guys that I knew standing there, and they says, oh, there goes the next driver for the Miss Budweiser. And it just kind of, I said, what? I said, nah. So I went over, and Dave introduced me to him, and then he said Dean was going to retire at the end of the year, and he says he wanted me to meet Mr. Little. And next week we went to Madison. We raced at the same time they did with the Unlimiteds, and Bernie came up and he said, I want you to come down and stand on the dock and watch the boat run. And that's the last I heard of him until Dean was killed. And then
he was going to retire anyway, huh?
Dean was going to retire, and he recommended, Bernie asked him to help find another driver, and Dean recommended me, and just didn't quite make it to the end of the season.
Ironic, very. The business of boat racing is interesting in that it's concentrated on these 2 or 3 major boats, and you're now in the spotlight. You're a major celebrity in a relatively small group of guys. It's not like Indy cars or some other kinds of motorsport that there are just you and Chip Hanauer and a couple of other fellows that are always in the spotlight. Is that an uncomfortable situation for you, or do you like that?
Well, you know, at times it's nice to be recognized and things like that. And there's other times when I really don't care to speak to anyone. When I'm getting ready to go racing, I make a lot of timing runs out there on the race course for my starts, places to be at certain times on the last minute. And I try to memorize those, and I don't want to forget things like that. And there's things I have to remember when I come back in that the crew would like to know how the engine's performing, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't want to get too involved with anyone at that time except my crew.
So at the race, it's a little bit different situation. When you're ready to go, you're ready to race. You don't want to spend a lot of time talking to guys like me.
We'll give you all the time we can afterwards.
Okay. Well, we want to talk a little bit more. We'll be back with Jim Kropfeld and the great drivers after this.
Is this one of these famous Kropfeld bratwurst and corn barbecues I've heard about?
Well, this is it right here. This is a good old Midwest Silver Queen corn that it's kind of only grown in our area here, and it's very sweet. You'll find out when we get it cooked. We cook it right in a husk.
Do you? Jim, I know Lisa travels to the races with you a lot, but now Scott and Robbie, the boys, are starting to come on pretty strong in motorsports, huh?
Right. Robbie, the younger one, he's 18, he's been motocrossing for about 3 years, and he has a room full of trophies in there, and he's even going professional now. He's starting to win a little money, so that makes it easier on him. And Scott, he's 21 now, and go-karting, about 7 years, and he does his own, sets up his own cars, builds his own engines, and he's got a lot of first-place trophies.
Any thoughts about moving into the boats for the boys?
It's in the back of my mind all the time. I don't know if I really would want to go out there and compete against my children, but I think they want it so bad that I'm going to work on a few things for next year, and hopefully I can get them into a couple boats by 1986.
Not an Unlimited.
Not an Unlimited, no. That's I found out the hard way. You don't want to start at the top.
Yeah.
You have to work your way up and learn the ropes, and I feel that I did it that way, and I think that's the best way to do it.
Well, the boys are working for you, though, right now, aren't they?
Right. They're both in a muffler shop. Scott's been there full-time since he was out of school, and now Robbie is also.
Are they good mechanics?
Oh, yeah.
Are they?
They're both, you know, as I said, they both do all their own engine work and their chassis work on their bikes and carts, and they're both excellent muffler installers, and we do a lot of custom work, and they bend all their own tubing.
I notice that model of the boat that you're working on, plus the restorations on those Pontiacs, the old man didn't too bad with his hands either.
No, I used to do a lot of work myself. I've gotten away from it. I'm gone all the time now, but I like to work with my hands. I've always done models and car restorations and around the house, all kind of things.
Do you help out with the boat at all, with the race boat?
No, that's part of the deal. You know, we have the crew that they do all that, and it's my job to drive. And I think any driver will tell you that if you have to do two jobs, you're not going to be as good at one as you would at the other.
Do you have a lot of time around the house? Do you have much chance to hang out at all?
No, I think you probably know how it is. You're gone 4 or 5 days, you come home and you change suitcases and you're on the road again, and that's about it. Until September, I'll be gone most of the time.
Sounds like the grills are gone most of the time anyway when you're home.
Well, you know, a charcoal broiled steak is about the best, and we keep the one hooked up out here all winter long, and we cook almost every day outside.
Well, we'll see you at the boat races for sure, but we sure appreciate you and Lisa having us by and being able to spend a little bit of time with you. It was great. Hope to do it again.
I had a lot of fun myself. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. And thank you for joining us today with Jim Kropfeld on The Great Drivers.
To further your enjoyment of The Great Drivers, the Nashville Network has commissioned series host Brock Yates to profile America's fastest heroes in this exciting book, Volume 1 of The Great Drivers. This book takes you beyond a television series. It's filled with stories, statistics, and full color and rare photos of such great drivers as Richard Petty, Darrell Waltrip, Bobby Allison, Neil Bonnet, and others. You'll be proud to keep this tribute to racing's greats or give it as a gift. To receive Volume 1 of The Great Drivers, send check or money order for $9.95, which includes postage and handling, to The Great Drivers, the Nashville Network, Post Office Box 184, Nashville, Tennessee. This unique and beautifully designed book, a must for every racing fan, is not sold in stores and is only available through this TV offer. Send $9.95 to The Great Drivers, the Nashville Network, Post Office Box 184, Nashville, Tennessee.